Don't be a stranger in the night. Take a chance for some romance. Don't cover your eyes. We'll
Nice, you can see that orange.
Oh my gosh, already.
Whoa, check it out. Beautiful.
Wow.
Into the black walnut pot. This is Mars's hand spun. Ooh, pull it up just a tiny bit. Already seeing some brown. We've got 4 more on there. So 5 skeins of yarn and maybe 6 walnut husks.
Now we've got BFL going in. Taking right away some nice color.
Yeah, so we'll let them sit and simmer for maybe an hour or so, and then probably just turn it off and let them sit overnight. Look at that already. Beautiful.
Enjoy, yarn babies.
And here in this pot, we are finishing the first simmer of our Harlequin Glory Bower. It's very hard to say that. I think I'm just going to start calling them Kasugi berries. That's the Japanese name. And we're going to do a few extractions to try and get all the color out of these.
in a pretty cold. Don't storm in the storm. If not me, then someone like me that knows what to do, how to take care of you.
Hi everyone. I hope you're all doing fantastic. It is fall. Hello, fall. I love this season for the cooler weather, for the falling leaves, for the tea and lit candles, for the things that I feel like I start settling into. Though it seems like, it's funny, fall is supposed to be that season where you go more internal, you start reflecting on the year, all of that, you know, calming down a little bit from the crazy of the summer. But I feel like my falls are always 100% high gear. So I am looking forward to a little bit of calming down. I've got a bunch of classes happening in this next month. And then after that, for most of November and December, I think I'm going to chill. I want to finish reading Harry Potter with Leaf. We're on book number 6 together. I've read the books with everyone in my family. I read them out loud with Toby when he and I first started dating. I read them to Kaya when she was younger, and now I'm reading them all to Leaf, even though he can read them himself. It's just a fun little tradition. So I'm looking forward to that. Yes, so I hope you're all doing well. If you have not yet seen the video I posted before this, you have to stop right now and go watch it. I'm going to put it right here so you can link to it. It's only 5 minutes, and it's the silliest thing I've posted. Mars came up, Hey Brown Berry came up to visit for a few days, and we just had an idea to film something cute. And I think you'll get a giggle out of it. So go watch it first. I'll wait. Okay, so hopefully you liked it. So Mars came up and we just had the best time. The goal was to get into my freezer and all of that extra dye stuff that I have that's kind of starting to pile up, and just use it. I had a bunch of extra yarn. I had over-ordered for one of the classes. I ordered it in cones, thinking that I could skein it up into minis for one of the natural dyeing classes that I'm teaching. And I started skeining it, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to get through all of this. There's so much of it. And because I needed over 200 minis. So I called the company. I said, hey, do you guys do minis? And they're like, yeah, sure, we could do it. What, 25 grams? I was like, sure, that sounds great. So they sent me all the minis I needed, and then I had 2 massive cones of yarn. So I decided to dye it up, and I'm probably going to be putting it in the shop soon. But, well, it's here, so I'll show you what it is. Let's see. The first thing we did, well, this is the yarn from the video. And actually, the point of dyeing yellow is I was wanting to recreate this color. because I want to knit a sweater. I have an idea for a sweater that I want to design. It's probably not going to be something I publish. It's just something that'll be made to fit me with a little design up the sleeve, and if I get a chance to figure out how to make that recipe so everyone can use it, I absolutely will. But I was trying to recreate this color, this kind of mustard yellow, and we ended up getting this, which actually, looking at them close to each other, it's not too far off. This one's a little more copper. But the funny thing was, if you've seen the video and you'll know what I'm talking about, this is the exact same color as Newt Scamander's hair in that picture. So it was like, with the marigolds and just a little bit of black walnut, I thought it would go really yellow with a hint of brown, and it ended up coming out copper. And I love it. I think it's a great color, so I'm still going to do that. But that was one of the first things that we dyed. Then we took, what did I have? We had some madder root and coreopsis in a dye pot. So we put some yarn in there. And, well, Mars first put her some sock blanks in and got this gorgeous persimmon color, really beautiful orange. So once those were out, I put this one in, and once this was out, I put this one in. So we exhausted the color as much as possible. I love the idea of getting as much color out of a bath as you can, because even if this is a color I don't like, it's too light for me, say it's too pastel and too light, I can stick it in another dye bath and get something completely different because of this base color that I've got. So it's really fun to play with those creations. Oh, this time, I will hopefully have already posted it, but I've decided, since my videos are trending more away from just knitting videos, and there's more homesteading and there's more creating and dyeing and stuff, I'm going to try and start using timestamps. So for those of you who are interested in going just to the knitting or just to the dyeing, you'll know where it is, and I'll post that so you guys can see it. And I'm also doing more short videos of just snippets of how I create something, like the Wool Witches video, little things like that, that it's fun to see a little 5 minutes of this or that instead of a whole video. So you'll see hopefully some more of those. Anyway, back to the dyeing. So after that, we decided to do a bath of black walnut. Leaf's school has a couple of really big black walnut trees, and they've been collecting them for me. They have one of the kids at the school is allergic to nuts, so they just keep nuts away from the school. So every day the teachers go and take the nuts and chuck them into a river that's actually under part of the school. So I told them I could use it for dyeing, so they started collecting all the nuts for me, and I have put away probably 3 or 4 5-gallon buckets of walnut husks. So I'll have lots of that for future. But this is what we got out of that. It's a beautiful brown. So I've only ever used it fresh. Brown isn't a color that I gravitate towards, so I usually only just use it fresh when it's in season, but I'm really liking it right now, the browns, or how it can modify other colors, give it a little more depth, sometimes a little bit more, bring out the gold a little bit in a color. So I decided to put a bunch away, and so we'll see how it is when it's dried. I have a feeling the dried walnut is going to give me more of a deep walnut color as opposed to like a chestnut color. So maybe a little less gold and red and a little more of the black brown. So we'll see. Okay, let's see, what other ones do I have to show you. This one is just from a bucket of madder that I had this dye that had been sitting there for months, and I hadn't done anything with it. It was from a class from many months ago, so I threw some yarn in that and got a really pretty pink. It's a red pink, I'd say, when it's in natural light. It's a nice color. So I've got all of these goodies. And then one of the things that you'll see in this video, if I haven't already posted it, is some of the dyeing that Mars and I did while she was here was with berries from a tree out also at Leaf School called a Harlequin Glory Bower tree. And I'd never heard of this tree. I'd never seen it anywhere but on their school grounds. And it is, the leaves really, they're not anything that would stand out. But the flowers, so the flowers come out of this pink calyx, like this little bright pink bulb. And these little white flowers come out. And when that's done, inside the calyx, it's very much like a hibiscus, the medicinal hibiscus. It's kind of like a flower that's not very showy, and then inside of that calyx develops a seed, and when the calyx pops open, it's a bright blue seed. Actually, it goes to very deep blue. And they were like, do you think you could do some dyeing with this? And I was like, well, I could try. So when I looked it up, I discovered that this tree, which is called a kasugi tree in Japan, is called the other blue beside indigo because it brings out such a great blue and is, some people say, pretty fast as far as it doesn't wash out very well, and others say it fades but not as quickly as some other dyes would. Blue's a really hard color to achieve from natural dyes, one that will stay actually. So I decided to give it a try. So all the little hands at the school helped me gather these berries, which is so cool. Mars was there. She got up on the ladder and started grabbing them. And we got a bunch of berries, and I put in some yarn, and I put in a silk, because I want to give them something back. And I thought if I give them a big silk, it might be something they could paint on, make a flag with, whatever. So here's the yarn, and here's the silk. The dye bath, let's see. The dye bath is a process. You don't just put the berries in and simmer them. You simmer it, you strain them, you simmer it again, you strain that off. That's a fairly deep blue dye. And then you do it again, but you crush the berries, simmer it, simmer and strain again. So you have these 4 separate baths. I combined all of it and got a beautiful teal, like aqua color. I think if I had only used the dye from the first 2 extractions, it would have been a bluer as opposed to the green that came out of it. And I also think had I not put this in, or if I'd only used one of these, a lot more color would have been pulled into the fabric or the yarn, and it would have been a deeper color. But I love it. I think they turned out so pretty. So this is almost 8 ounces of the California Red that I showed you. That was my was it my latest hand spun? No, it was a few months ago that I finished this hand spun. I have no idea what I'm going to do with it, but I love the color. So then I was doing some more research. This tree in Japan has many different names. It's called the peanut butter tree. It's called the stinky tree, the smelly tree. I didn't notice any smell. They said when you crush the leaves, you notice a scent. Some people said it smelled like boiled soybeans. When we started, nothing really smelled like much, but when we started simmering those berries and we opened the pot, it was overwhelming, the smell of roasted corn or roasted peanuts. You really could smell it. It was, I had everyone come over, and Toby was like, yeah, that smells like roasted corn, and Kaya said, it kind of smells like chocolate chip cookies. Like everybody had this thought of some food that it smelled like. It was a really cool smell. We didn't think it was stinky. We liked the smell of it. But one of the things that I saw in the research is that the calyx, the pink part of the flower, can actually make color too. So the next time I went and harvested, when all the rest of, they kind of opened at different rates. So the first harvest, we picked a bunch of the berries, and that was it. The second harvest, they were almost all open. So I just snipped off the whole head of the flower. So I separated the berries from the pink calyx, and I used the pink calyx to dye this yarn. And it's 100 gram skein, and I used 200 grams of the calyx. It is a very, I'll put it next to the blue so you can see. It's a very subtle pink with almost a little bit of copper in it. And I love it. I think it's really beautiful. In fact, they look really pretty together. It's kind of funny how this is like, I don't know, 2 pastel pink and blue from that plant. But yeah, so another fun one to experiment with. And at the end of May, I guess it was, so the plant reproduces through the seeds, but it also sends out runners. And they were getting all these little seedlings popping up around the grounds. And this is the playground, so the kids, trample over them, and they didn't want the kids to trip on them either. So they were digging them up and giving them away. So I got one that was, I don't know, maybe this tall, and now it has to be 2.5 feet tall. It's probably going to bloom next year. which will be exciting. One of the people who did a write-up on it said that it was a quick-growing tree. It grew fast for 10 or 15 years, then it rots and dies. So we'll see, or maybe they consider it a shrub. But anyway, it'll be fun. It'll be fun to have one of those on my property. So what am I wearing? I always forget to tell you guys, and this is definitely something I want to show off. This is called the Aluna Shawl by Anthony Casalena. And I love it. If you look on my Ravelry page to see the pictures, it lays out like butterfly wings. It reminds me of a Luna moth. It's all worked in garter stitch with short rows, and there's a few yarn overs. It's super simple to knit, but I really love the design, and I love how the colors turned out. So this was all my naturally dyed yarn. The red is madder and Brazil wood. The purple is logwood. The light pink is avocado, and the green came from lupine. Isn't that crazy? That's all from lupine. So yes, that's what I'm wearing right now. Okay. So one thing I have to do now that it's fall is my Patreon giveaway. So some of those of you who are patrons take part in the seasonal giveaways, and I do 3 drawings. And I've pulled your names already, but first I want to show you what the prizes are. The first thing is this super cute little bag, and it says, "This is the place where I like to keep things that I need very, very much. They are watched over by this baby alpaca. She is fluffy and harmless, but her friend Big Woolly likes to spit like a camel and kicks like a mule." And this is one that I got at Edinburgh Yarn Festival a few years ago. And inside, I put a little sample of the apple cider donut tea. So that will be for one of you. The next thing is a shawl that I made in my hand knit yarn, or my hand spun yarn. This is the Timberline Lodge shawl. It's like a small wrap. And this is also done with garter stitch and yarn overs. Am I showing you the right side? Sometimes it's hard to tell when it's all garter stitch and yarn over. But there you go. I think this is one of the first things I knit with my hand spun. So there is this shawl, and then there is the Rhinebeck sock blanks that Andre Sue Knits made a few years back. I got a couple of these, and this one has trees and sheep and falling leaves and fences. I'm not going to take it all apart, but it's a super cute sock blank by Andre Sue Knits, and I don't think she does these anymore, so this is a special treat. So from the Patreons, the winners are Lauren G, Loren. If you spell your name Loren, you're the winner. You are the first winner. Christy B, Christy with an IE at the end, you're the second. And Marie, who is Diamante Sandal in your email address. So if you guys are the winners, I need you to contact me. And Lauren, you have first choice. If you'll let me know what your first choice is, the sock blank, the shawl, or the little baggie and tee. And Christy, if you'll tell me what your first and second choice are, then and then Marie, you will get the third one. So hopefully that will all work out and everybody will get something that they love. But if you guys will contact me either through Patreon or through Ravelry or an email, that's totally fine. And thank you guys so much for supporting through Patreon. I really appreciate it. There's a lot of time and energy and thought that goes into creating these videos, especially like the dyeing video that I did just before this. And it's a lot of fun too, but the support helps me produce more. So thank you. There are a few more days to go for signing up for the Tea and Herb Winter Exchange. All of that's in my Ravelry group. And that will be through, let's see, signups are through October 10th, and after that I'll pair everybody up and let you guys know what groups you're in so that you guys can start gathering the herbs and teas that you want to send to each other, and everybody will end up with 24 days of really fun treats from all your friends in your group. So if you want to sign up for that, it's in my Ravelry group. I did have someone who was in Ravelry say, I have a friend who doesn't knit, she wants to sign up. Can she still do that? And I said, absolutely. So if you know of people who grow their own herbs or they really love tea and they want to participate and they're not part of the knitting community, that's totally fine too. Just let me know, and I need their email address, and that way I can put them in a group and contact them. Cool. So one last thing I wanted to tell you about before I get to my finished object. No, I have two things. Two things. The first is, many of you guys know Neighbor Steve and love Neighbor Steve. It's funny, the times I post his picture or talk about Neighbor Steve is the times when I get the most responses, because he's just such a sweet and awesome guy. He is just an amazing artist, and he sees things in a different way, very creatively. And he will often pick up stray pieces of wood or, wood on the beach, stuff that he finds and that he sees something in, and will create stuff with it. So Leaf had found this really cool piece of wood. I don't remember when it was, a couple weeks back. And Steve had come over and seen the piece of wood and said, hey, do you mind if I take that and make something with it? And we didn't ask Leaf, because Leaf is a serious collector of sticks and rocks and things. And we knew he wouldn't really miss if it were gone. Often it just gets chucked in the wood because he collects so many pieces of wood and rocks. So Steve took it home with him, and he created this. Look at that. Isn't that awesome? So he gave it some teddy bear arms from his dog who chews up teddy bears. He saw a little fishy friend, I think, in this extra piece of wood. This is all from one piece of wood, except for the teddy bear arms in the bottom. He gave them faces. He gave them a little ball cap. Let me bring it a little closer. So there's his face. He has little bead eyeballs. Isn't he awesome? And then he had another one, and he said, well, do you think the kids would like this other one? And we're like, well, yeah. And here's this one. Look at that. So the arms and the tail all come from one piece of wood. There's a little piece of coral on the end. This one had a weird cut into the middle of the wood, so he gave him a little friend. They're all silly little monsters, but I love them. And then nuts for ears. This was a separate piece of wood, the face, but it had this crazy jaw thing, so we gave him a mouth. I love them. I absolutely love them. So we have to find a good spot in the house to keep them where they won't get knocked over or played with, but they're like, I could see those things in fancy art galleries. They're so awesome. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is I continue to think about the climate crisis and the stuff that's going on right now and how I can contribute more positively to change. And my daughter went to the climate strike a few weeks ago, and it reminded me of when I was her age and we were talking about all of this and climate change and the ozone layer and all this other stuff, and I was so hopeful, but I felt like nobody was listening. And here I am, 25 plus years later, and I still feel like nobody's doing anything. So it's hard to see my daughter going through the same thing and thinking, when are people going to listen? So I'm really trying to model good things for her, like not buying lunch snacks that are wrapped in 3 layers of plastic, and driving less, and showing how I can offset the things that I do negatively. And one of those things is that I'm flying more now that I'm teaching more. I've been on a number of flights this year already, and I have 3 more. So I went online and took a number of tests on my carbon footprint. You can Google carbon emissions, carbon footprint, some of those and words, and take tests to see how much you put out into the atmosphere by your lifestyle, what you do. It asks you what kind of car do you drive and what kind of gas mileage does it get. It asks you how much do you fly or do you eat meat, and what kind of electricity do you use, stuff like that. All of those things that might contribute to putting more carbon in the atmosphere. So I did that for myself individually and also for our whole household, and averaged out to a household of about 40 metric tons of carbon a year. That was below the US average, but still higher than the world average, simply because I'm a bigger consumer. I have more money, so I buy more things, which means I buy more flights, I drive more. I'm not living off the land as much as some other people are. So I had discovered, and I'm telling you this because I didn't know this beforehand, and so maybe some of you guys don't know it either, and it's something really interesting to me. A few months ago, I got emails that Etsy was now offsetting our carbon from shipping. So if I have something up on my Etsy store and you purchase it, I have to ship it to you. That means it's going either by truck or by plane to you, and there's carbon emissions involved in that. They're offsetting those carbon emissions. So I looked it up, and what that means is they were working with a company that invests in projects that do things to create a more sustainable world. So anytime you buy something from my store, they calculate the amount of carbon emissions it will take to get from me to you, that product. And they donate that amount to businesses that that have sustainable projects going on. And I thought, well, that's awesome. Why can't I do that in my daily life? Why can't, if I order something from Amazon, or if I take a flight? Because when I look at it, taking airline flights is the major contributor for my life to what I do, for carbon, because I'm able, we live in a fairly sustainable house. All of our electricity is from wind power. So there's some of those things that I've already been able to cut back on, but the flights, I really want to keep teaching. But I can't take a train there all the time. The train system in my neck of the woods is awful. And so I looked into it, and you can invest in carbon offset companies, or basically pay to offset your carbon. So when I say our family was 40 metric tons for our lifestyle and the flying that we did, I went to this company called The Gold Standard, and they do research into projects that are going to increase the sustainability in an environment. So, for example, I'll just tell you about the projects that I ended up contributing to, because I wanted to offset the carbon that we put out this year. And when I say this, I am not judging. I am not saying, look at me, I have put out this money and I am making the world a better place, because this is not a free ticket for me to say I can fly wherever I want and pollute as much as I want because I'll just offset it by paying into these things. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I had no idea this was out there, and this is another way that I can contribute something. And some of you may not have the funds to do that, and that is totally fine. But when I think about those people who are the bigger contributors to carbon in the environment, it is those people, like my family, that are bigger consumers, because we have the money to be consumers, which also means we probably have the money to offset some of that carbon that we are contributing to putting in the environment by consuming. Because it's not expensive. It really isn't. It ended up being something like $10 or $15 to offset a whole flight from Asheville to New York. I don't mind adding that to my airline bill if that means I'm giving a little something back to the environment. So what happened is I decided to invest in, to offset 20 metric tons. I'm doing half of it. I'm letting my husband choose the other half. I invested in 4 different projects. So the project will say something that'll have a picture. It'll have a long description of what is this project, how does it benefit the environment, and how many metric tons do they need to have offset to fund this project, right? So if they're charging $18 per metric ton, they have, say, 234 metric tons to sell, basically, to offset before this project is funded. Because it's pointless for everybody, like, if the project is only going to cost $2,000 and people contribute $10,000 worth of money, it's great that they get extra money, but it's not offsetting the amount of carbon they wanted to offset by doing this project. So once they've sold that amount of metric tons, the project is done, right? They don't fund any more into it. So they make sure that when you are offsetting your carbon, it's truly getting offset and you're not repeating something that someone else has already paid for, if that makes sense. So what I chose was, I'm investing in planting biodiverse forests in Panama, where there's been a lot of logging and a lot of development. They're replanting there to try and increase the trees that can take in carbon. There was a safe water project for safe water access in Rwanda for communities that did not have access to safe water, and that means they don't have to have stuff trucked in. I invested in a wind power project in India, in Andhra Pradesh, India, for a community that needed energy, and they're now getting sustainable, clean energy. And then I invested for clean gas stoves in Myanmar for impoverished communities that were using dirty gas, basically gas that was going to increase the carbon output in the environment. So they're now giving them clean gas stoves so that they can decrease their carbon output. So that's what happens, is the projects are funded for other things around the world that will increase the sustainability and decrease the carbon. And I think that's amazing. That's awesome. That means that you and I as individuals can make the choice if we want to say, okay, I know that I've ordered that new coffee mug from so-and-so, but I would like to give a benefit to the environment because of the consuming that I'm doing. I hope that makes sense. I feel like that was kind of in a circle there, but either way, if you're interested, you can look up companies that offset carbon emissions. Gold Standard is one that I looked up. You can also go on Etsy and look up Etsy offsetting carbon emissions and see their whole plan of what they're doing. I just think it's really cool. So, if you didn't know, now you do. The last thing I wanted to talk with you guys about is just what I knit. I have a finished object. You may have seen it already on Instagram. It is my Good Day Tee by Annie Lupton, and I think it's awesome. It's super soft. It was such a simple project, and honestly, the only reason why it took me so long is because I just had so many other things to do. But really, if I think about it, because it's very long, it's kind of like knitting a full-size fingering weight sweater, because the length of it would have otherwise gone into the arms, right? So I just knit myself a fingering weight sweater. That's why it took me so long, and that's okay. But I love it. It was super simple and really cute, and you could make it long-sleeved if you wanted, but it's a really nice piece for layering things. It'd be great over a t-shirt and jeans. It'd be great over a long dress, but I really like it. So that's it. I cast it on for the Cora Crop by Rachel Brockman as soon as I finish this. So I only have about this much of the bottom done of that one, but that's another summer top that I really wanted to do, and now that it's fall, I'm finally getting to it. Hopefully after that I will cast on for a warm sweater or something. But I think that's it. Sorry. I have a kitty next to me. She's mad I'm moving the paper underneath her. Yep, I think that's it. So hopefully I'll see you guys in a few weeks. I hope you're having an amazing October so far and enjoying some cool weather. Our weather is supposed to start cooling down tomorrow, which would be great. Usually it's much cooler by now, but it has been a super hot September and October. So I'm looking forward to bonfires and hot cocoa and all of that. I hope you guys are doing well, and I'll talk to you soon.